Right, so we are done with strings in Python. Now we'll head on to data structures in Python. So till now we've only stored a singular value in a variable, but many times when we are dealing with huge amounts of data, we'd have to store multiple elements into a singular data structure. So that is where we will have this collection of variables. So we've got these different collections of variables which are tuple, list, dictionary, and set, and these form the most important part of our Python programming. So let's start with the first one, which is a tuple. So as it is stated over here, tuple is basically an ordered collection of elements enclosed within round braces, and tuples are immutable. Now, what do I mean when I say tuples are immutable? So once you create a tuple, you can't change the value which is present inside the tuple, right? And this is how you can create a tuple. So first you will give a name to the tuple. So tuple1 is the name of this, and you will just give in round braces, and then you'll give in a bunch of elements. So as you see, this tuple has elements of different data type over here. So this is a numeric one, this is a character one, and then this is a boolean one, right? So a tuple is basically a heterogeneous mixture of different elements, and this is an ordered collection of all of those different heterogeneous elements. And also, once you create a tuple, you cannot go ahead and change the tuple. So let's go to Jupyter Notebook and create a first tuple. So I'll just use hash over here and add in a comment which is tuple. Now I will go ahead and create my first tuple. I'll type in tuple1. I'll give in round braces over here. I'll type 1, A, and then I'll give in a boolean value which is true. After this, I'll again give a numeric value, and then I'll again give a character value, and then I'll follow it up with a boolean value again which is false. I'll click on run. Now let me also print in tuple1 over here. So this is our tuple. Now just to verify this is actually a tuple, I'll check the type of it. So inside this type method, I will pass in this tuple1, and as we see, this is a tuple. So we have successfully created our first tuple. So now that we have created tuple, let's see how can we extract individual elements from a tuple. So it's actually similar to the string. So in a tuple as well, the indexing starts with 0. So if you want to extract the first element in a tuple, you would have to give in 0 over here. So you will start with giving the name of the tuple, you will give in parenthesis, and then inside the parenthesis, you will give in the index value. So if you want the first element, you'll give in 0, and then you can extract the first element over here. Similarly, if you want to extract the last element, it's the same as string again, you will give in -1. So the last element over here is false. So to extract false from this, I will give in the name of the tuple, which is tuple1, and inside parenthesis, I'll give in -1. Or similarly, if you want to extract a sequence of elements, we can use this colon operator over here, right? So tuple1, I want to extract all the elements which are A, true, and 2. So basically going from index number 1 until going till index number 4. Now I've given index number 4 because this is exclusive and this is inclusive, right? So let's go ahead and extract some individual elements. So we've got our tuple ready over here. Let me just print it out again, right? So this is our tuple. Now I want to extract the first element from this. I'll give in the parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis, I'll give in 0. So as you see, I have extracted the first element. Similarly, if I want to extract the second element, so the index for the second element would be equal to 1. So I'll type in 1, and I have extracted the second element as well. Now if I want to extract the last element, I'll type in tup1, and I'll pass in -1 over here. So I have extracted the last element, which is false. Now I'll go ahead and extract a sequence of elements. So I'll type in tup1 over here, and let's say I want to extract true, 2, and b. So for this, the index would be 2. It starts at 2, and it goes on till 2, 3, 4. And since this is not inclusive, I'd have to give this, so it'll be 5. So I have successfully extracted these 3 elements, which are true, 2, and b. And this is how we can extract individual elements from a tuple. Right. Now, as I've told you, a tuple is immutable. That means you cannot go ahead and change the values which are present in a tuple. So let's actually try doing that. So over here, I am trying to change the value which is present at index number 2, and I'm assigning it a value of hello. And when I try to do that, I get an error. So the error is tuple object does not support item assignment, and that is because tuples are immutable. So let's try this example out in Jupyter Notebook. So we've got this tuple over here. Just for our reference, I'll print it out. Right. So this is our tuple. Now again, I'll try to change this index value over here. So I'll try to change this from true to hello. So tup1, the index is 2 over here, and I'll try to store hello over there. Well, I get an error. Now, let's say I actually want to add a new element inside this. So there are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? So the final index number is 5. Now, let's say if I want to add a new element. So for that, the index number would be 6. So I'll type in tup1, and I'll give in the index value to 6. And let me see if I can add a new element at the end of the elements. So I'll name this as, this is Sparta again. Well, I can't help it. This is my favorite movie. So, and also this is my favorite sentence of all time. Well, seems like even my favorite sentence can't get inside this tuple, right? So this is because tuple is immutable and you can't modify it. Now we'll go ahead and perform some basic operations with tuple. So let's say again, if you want to find out the length of a tuple, we'll use this len method, and this will give us the length of the tuple. Now after that, we can actually concatenate 2 tuples, or basically merge 2 tuples. So over here, we've got tuple1 and tuple2. The values in tuple1 are 1, 2, and 3, and the values in tup2 are 4, 5, and 6. And when you use the addition operator on these 2 tuples, you are actually concatenating them. And you, as you already know, you can't modify a tuple. So that is why when you do tup1 plus tup2, you'll not get 5, 7, and 9. What you're doing is you are attaching this tuple at the end of this tuple, right? So let's work with these 2 examples in Jupyter Notebook. So again, I'll print out tup1 over here, and this is what we have. Now I will go ahead and find out the length of this. So len of tup1, and we see that the length of this is equal to 6. Now I'll create 2 more tuples over here. So this time the values which are stored in tup1 are a, and after this I'll store true, and then maybe I'll store complex value, so 3 plus 5j. I'll also go ahead and create my second tuple, tup2, and inside this I'll also store some values. So let's say I will store Sparta inside this, and I'll store a false value, and then I'll give a numeric value which is 5050. Right, so we've got tup1 and tup2 ready. Now I'll just type in tup1 plus tup2, and let's see what do we get, right? So this is basically your concatenation of these 2 tuples. So since we have tup1 on the left side and tup2 on the right side, we've got these 3 elements first and these 3 elements followed by them. Now let me type in tup2 plus tup1, and let's see what is the difference. right? So this time we've got the elements of tup2 first, and then they are followed by the elements of tup1. So the sequence of these two tuples matters when you are concatenating them, right? So whatever tuple you give on the left side of the plus operator, those elements of the tuple will come first. And whatever tuple you give on the right side of the plus operator, those elements will come on the second term. So this is how you can concatenate two tuples. So now we'll see how can we repeat the elements inside a tuple. So let's say we've got this tuple over here where the elements are, so we've got one string element Sparta, and then we've got a numeric element 300. Now all I want to do is repeat these elements for a number of times. Let's say if I want to repeat these elements 3 times, then all I have to do is multiply this tuple with 3, right? And that is how I can repeat these elements. Similarly, I can do repeating and concatenating in the same line of code. So what I'll do is I've got this tup1, I'll multiply it with 3. So when I multiply it with 3, then I'll get this tuple. So after that, I will add a new tuple to it. So I have tup2 over here where the elements are 4, 5, and 6. So to this, I am adding 4, 5, and 6. So repeating and concatenating is happening in the same tuple. Let's go to Jupyter Notebook and perform these operations. So now let me go ahead and create the tuple. So I'll type in tup1 and I'll give in the elements inside this. So let's say the first element is 1, the second element is true, and then I'll give in a decimal pointing data. So I will give it the number as 3.14, right? So my tuple is ready over here. So I'll just type in tup1 into 3. So when I do this, I see that this is my first set of the elements. So 1, true, and 3.14. Then I've got the second set, and also I've got the third set. This is how I can repeat the elements which are present inside the tuple. Now I'll also create another tuple over here with the name tup2, and I'll add in the values. So the values would be A, B, and then I've also got C over here. So I've got these 2 elements inside this tuple. Now I want to concatenate this to the first tuple. So I'll type in tup1, and let's say this time I want to repeat the elements 5 times. So tup1 into 5, and then I will add the second tuple to it, which will be tup2. So this is what I get. So right, this is my first set over here, 1, true, 3.14, right? And then I got 1, true, 3.14. So this goes on till 5 times. Now once the repetition is done, I am adding the second tuple or concatenating the second tuple at the back end of it. So I got A, B, and C over here. So this is how repetition and concatenation can be done. Now we'll work with some tuple functions. So let's say I have a tuple with some random set of numbers, and I want to find out the minimum and the maximum values present in the tuple. So all you have to do is use the min and the max functions. So over here I've got this tuple where the elements inside it are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And all I do is pass in this tuple inside the min function, and we see that the minimum value is 1. Similarly, I'll pass in this tuple inside the max function, and we see that the maximum value is 5. So let me create a tuple over here, tup1, and let me add in some random elements. So 67, 43, 1, 90, minus 45, and then I'll give 67. Well, we already have 67, so I'll type in 68 over here. Now let me find out which is the minimum value present in this tuple. So I'll use the min function, and I'll pass in tup1 inside this. So see that minus 45 seems to be the minimum element which is present in this tuple. Now I also have to find out the maximum element which is present in this tuple. So I'll type in tup1, and we see that 90 is the maximum value. So this is how we can find out the minimum value and the maximum value.